All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy Thursday evenings to come and join us for this little Q&A session. I'm Kathleen Harper. I'm kind of helping co-produce this year since Meghan, who is typically producer extraordinaire for Wearable Art the past, how many years now, Meghan?
4.
Many years, 4 years. So
Right.
she used to be on the June Arts and Humanities Council staff, but is no longer. She's left us. We cry tears, but she's still here with us for Wearable Art. So yay, we get to keep her. But that does mean, for those of you who are used to like getting bombarded with Meghan emails, they may be a little slower this year. And she may not be quite as responsive. However, I'm still on the Jack staff. So if you have like Jack type questions, you can always email that to me. Or best case scenario, you email all three of us and we can help get you situated where you need to go because we all have different little fingers and different pies. And then of course, off to the other side here, we've got Margeaux, who is our director extraordinaire for the past 4 years or 5 years now, or however many years.
Right.
So, and Margeaux helps bring kind of a vision to bring this whole crazy event together into some sort of unified whole, and also will help each of the artists sort of shape your vision to be the best that it can be as we present it to the audiences, which this year could be beyond even Juno. So that's really exciting. So
Well,
Margeaux, do you want to give us an overview of the event this year?
yeah. So Wearable Art this year gets to be streamed into our homes. The one thing that we felt really was important as a team was that we could say with confidence, the show is happening. So you don't need to worry about whether or not, because a change in what's going on in our world, which I feel like changes every single day, that the show is going to get canceled, which is why we've chosen to go with a streamed version of the show. We're very excited. We have a professional filmmaker who's going to work with us on filming all of the pieces well in advance. So the models won't be live at the show, which is a Wearable Art first, because it means all of the artists get to sit back and relax during show weekend. And I don't think we've ever gotten to sit back and relax during show weekend if you're an artist. We're also really excited because it allows for us to kind of spread out and socially distance as we do the filming. We're not going to have the opportunity to all be crowded into Centennial Hall. We are currently working with a couple different locations, which we can talk about in more detail. The MCs will be live during the stream show. That is the live portion, not necessarily in the same room together, but they will be commenting live between the pre-filmed videos. It is going to be a festival, as I think Meghan said. The festival is really exciting to allow us different opportunities, especially the Jack, different opportunities for fundraising, maybe guided conversations about why we choose the art we choose, possibly, well, I don't want to spoil all the surprises, but we've had lots of brainstorming sessions on ways to expand upon our love of wearable art and take it to an entire week. And then our hope is to conclude the show with a living museum where pieces can be seen in person. And we can talk more about that tonight. I know that Meghan wants to go over just the schedule. It's a little bit different this year, especially because we've moved the event to May. So Meghan, do you want to talk about schedule?
Yeah, hi everyone. Well, if you have been with us before, you know my favorite thing is to go through the nitty gritty with you all. I'm going to keep it real short and sweet because the goal of this meeting in general is just to have a Q&A. It's super different. We'll talk about a little bit of everything, but we want you to ask your questions and we'll do our best to answer them. Like I said in my email to our current artist list, which is a good reminder to me, we may not know the answer to your questions right now, and we'll work hard at getting those, but everything is new for everyone this year. So we've done a lot of research and brainstorming so far, and we feel pretty confident in a lot of parts of this process, but we're still learning some others. So if you are not on my artist contact list, right now my new email for Wearable Art is wearableart@jahc.org. I maintain an artist contact list, all the artists I've worked with for the last 4 to 5 years. So you can let me know whenever you don't want to be on that list too. After registration stops on January 15th, I'll switch all of my communication only to the artists that are registered for this year. So you won't get blasted with it forever. We're here in January 2021. Registrations are due January 15th. So next week, mid-month, registrations are short and sweet this year because the whole process is a little bit more drawn out. So take a look at those, the links on the JAC website, jahc.org, if you haven't visited it before. February will begin artist interviews over Zoom, where we talk more about what you've put in your registration. We require both the artist and the model to attend via Zoom, of course not in the same room, but we want to meet both of you, and we'll talk a little bit about the story of your piece and anything that you think is really important for us to know. We take a lot of notes, and we use that information to help your piece come to life in the best possible way. Around late February, your music decisions will be due. Music process is different this year, so we can talk about that later, but I won't dive into it right now. Music decisions being due means that you and Margeaux need to have concluded any conversations about what your music is by that time. And sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes there's some back and forth between Margeaux and the artist. Not in a bad way, it's just sometimes people choose the same song, or we see something as a neutral source, not in your artist brain, that might clash with some of the things we've heard in your story, and we give you feedback on that. Then we move right along to March, which is when we start filming. And we'll talk about filming, but likely we'll film all the way through March, because having different people in the same space has a whole new meaning in this pandemic. And we have a couple different venues that we'll be in probably, but we'll be filming indoors. Masks are required. Models must wear functional masks. So obviously, please use your artist brains to decorate it and make it a masterpiece in and of itself, but it has to be a functional mask. If you have questions about what that means, there's some more info in the artist packet. We'll wrap up filming in March, and then in April, we'll begin editing. This is when you all get to sit back and relax, and the rest of the production team starts to dive into a lot of work. So we will do one round of edits. So artists will get to review their videos, offer feedback, and we'll work on those edits, but we will not be editing until the end of time, and we don't have plans to refilm any artists unless disaster strikes. And then we've come into the month of May, which is Wearable Art Festival Week. It is, I'm gonna pull up a calendar. While I do that, I'll keep talking. Wearable Art will start one weekend with the show streamed online 2 or 3 times. And then in between, in that week will be community engagement and outreach activities, fundraising. So for example, the silent auction will go on for a couple days online. And then pandemic and space permitting, we hope to close the whole festival with a living gallery where any interested models are staged at an appropriate distance, in costume, in Centennial Hall, and the public is admitted one family at a time to walk through and view the models. So we're still working on all of those logistics. Obviously that depends on a large space being available and whatever the national, state, and city guidelines are for the pandemic at that time. So that's kind of the basic schedule. All of this and more is online at jahc.org. In the artist packet, you can download it. It's an extra long document because I love to torture everyone, but it does have a lot of really good information in there. So
I want to say a couple of things about filming specifically.
okay.
Since that's a little bit about the direction of tonight's meeting, since that's for some of our returning artists, the newest element. And for our new artists, it's also new. So it's new for everyone. So just like in previous years, we will have artist interviews, and we encourage you to bring to your interviews via Zoom materials that we can look at, photos that we can share with the lighting designer, our filmmaker, the producer. The more you share with us, the better we can make your piece look when it comes to the big event. And we'll ask you many of the similar questions, but just keep thinking about how you can share pictures and physical items with us. The sooner the better, because we won't be in person until film day, and that's different than normal. Then we'll have at least one rehearsal. We can work on having more than one rehearsal if needed. That is also by Zoom. One of the things that is hardest to wrap our brains around is the fact that the look that I'm going for the video is not to see people marching in place as if they're going down a runway. So we don't have to have a highly choreographed piece this year where every single 8 count is completely choreographed. We are looking for more like a fashion video, which means if I design my piece and I have fringe on my sleeve, then there may be a close-up shot where you see me move my arm across my body and we get that zoom in of the fringe, which I have made using the Velcro straps on my child's old diapers. I don't know. And then you may see a full body shot, and then you may see me turn. And there's going to be lots of times during the filming that we're going to say cut, and we're going to change your position or have you move differently. But it's not about having the camera start filming you at 0 seconds, and then the camera stops filming you at 2 minutes in, and whatever you've done from 0 to 2 is the video. And so that's, I think, the hardest thing for those of us who have seen the show before or done the show before, to change how we think about our movement as an artist who is envisioning the movement of their piece and their model, and as a model for how you are going to move in your piece. That isn't to say that we can't explore moments of, you know, my piece looks really great when I jump because I have wings, or I have a very ethereal fabric that floats and I want the camera to see that. We can develop those movements to be filmed. If it's, I'm thinking of, and it's probably because it's on my mind because I see Gabby's face looking at me right now, but she had her beautiful piece that was made for her last year that was made out of ballet shoes with ribbons. And that of course is indicative of dance. But instead of needing to fill 2.5 minutes on the runway with a dance, we can have moments of dance and moments of beautiful ballet poses. And Gabby's not going to have to worry about how do I get from an arabesque to a piqué to a leap and have it all flow. Those can be stopped moments that then we as the production team and our filmmaker as he edits can connect. And so that's like watching a fashion video where you see those cuts and it's not necessarily a fluid movement, but it's still a fluid video. Hopefully I'm explaining that well. And of course, you guys are welcome to ask more questions. Something else I want to point out about filming is that we are going to limit how many people can be in that room. So we're not, unfortunately, going to be able to have you bring in a hairstylist to filming. You're not going to be able to bring in a makeup artist to filming. So as you think about that, think about, is this something that I can put on my model perhaps while she's at home? We recognize that many of our artists create pieces that would never fit in their 4-door sedan. So we are expecting you to need to get into your piece on location, but maybe not your hair and makeup on location. Also keep in mind, and this is really similar for how we ran rehearsals and show times last year, is, you know, if we say your tech rehearsal begins at 6 p.m., that means you're ready to be on the runway at 6 p.m. The same thing's going to happen with filming. When you're given a time slot for filming, the expectation is you're ready to go at filming, and we're not going to have time for you to say, oh, I'm still doing my hair. Everyone gets 2 hours, which sounds like this luxurious amount of time to film. It's really not. It's going to go by fast, especially since we're going to stop and start and stop and start. And so just show up prepared. The stuff that we work on in rehearsal, the ideas we come up with as a team, I will communicate with and you know, Kathleen's always there taking really great notes at rehearsal so that we all remember. We can always share those notes, those storyboards, those ideas to help you refresh your memory at home and with your model. But then we're going to communicate that to the filmmaker so he kind of knows, like, oh, okay, this is a fringe piece. Oh, this is an ethereal piece. Oh, there's wings. And he already knows what we've kind of developed together, which isn't to say he's not going to have his own ideas in the room. And we want that organic creative experience, but we're not going to start from scratch, because 2 hours isn't enough time to say, I don't know, what do you think? And then start from there. We'll just run out of time. And we want everyone's piece to just look amazing, like it is on the runway, but we're not marching in place. And I can't emphasize that enough. We all have to change the way we think about it. And then I think that is the most important things I want to say, and I want to open it up to questions now, Megan.
All right, so far in the chat, we've got one question from Jessica, which is, once we've completed the movement for the video, will artists be able to make sure that the video is portraying the art for the show after the edits are complete?
That's a great question, Jessica. So we have worked it out where there is going to be one round of edits with the artist, where the video, once it's put together, you're going to have a chance to see it and provide some feedback. But unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to edit and edit and edit and edit and edit. It's kind of similar to, in a way, to when we do tech rehearsal, and then Meghan waits for you at the end of the runway with her notebook and her pen, and you say, hey, it was really hard for me to see in that lighting. It was just a little too dim on my entrance because I'm doing that turn and I have the train. Or, hey, I couldn't hear the MC read my intro, so I felt like I wasn't in place on time. And you as artists might say, you know, who are not the model, that's kind of from the model perspective, might say, the lights didn't seem, you know, you all have feedback, you all have vision that you provide to Meghan, and then we as a production team go through everyone's notes at the end of tech rehearsal, and it's going to be kind of like that, where there's that one opportunity to look back, make a few edits, and then move forward.
Which I'll just jump into and say that that's why it's going to be so important during that Zoom rehearsal with Margeaux to kind of figure out like the basic overview of how the shooting wants to go, because then you'll make the most of that time.
Kathleen and I are working on as many resource documents as we can scheme up for you. So we have a filming parameters document that will get sent out after this Zoom meeting, but we wanted to make sure that if there are any big questions we hadn't covered already, we capture those. So that'll be headed to you all soon. We're also going to make a storyboard example. So like any artistic process, the more work you do in the beginning and research and inspiration and then in this case, communication with the production team. If you have a story, or if there are certain parts of your piece or stories about your piece or movement styles that are really, really, really important to you and that you like, they absolutely have to make it into the video, otherwise there's no point to you doing this. Tell us that in the beginning and we'll make sure that we capture that in your story and that makes it into the edits. That way we're not wasting time, essentially. So communication is key, obviously.
I know in the past, some of artists have created props that are a part of their piece. We've had like ray guns that shot bubbles. We've had staffs that have been part of kind of like a warrior inspired piece. Props can still happen in this version of wearable art. I do ask I mean, it's always great if you just tell me what they are, because sometimes what to one person is a prop, to me is a set piece. If you're like, I'm bringing in a horse-drawn wagon, that's not really a prop. So it's always great if you can tell me. The other thing I'm really excited about is, you know, I'm always talking to models about runway roadkill and are you taking off a cape and where are you putting the cape and don't throw the cape into the audience. And this year we don't have to worry about a little scurrying stagehand behind you because we can cut and then the cape can just be gone. So that's great for all of the artists who like to wear layers or like to have reveal pieces, is we can worry less about how is that going to get off the runway and do we need to sweep the runway before the barefoot princess then comes running on.
We've got another question from Jessica. Since this is an online experience, are we going to have a backdrop or different lighting experiences than the runway?
That's a great question. So right now, we don't have a backdrop selected that I can just show you. We are leaning towards and looking at having 2 backdrops. There's not going to be a set in the sense that we're not having someone physically design a huge set piece like we would in Centennial Hall. We obviously are looking for a backdrop color that isn't going to distract from anyone's pieces. The reason why we have been talking about having 2 is if, for instance, I really, because it's intergalactic, I want to get spacey. But if we choose a black backdrop and then KD designs an all black piece, you run the risk of maybe her piece looking like a floating head. So we're thinking about having 2 options. That way we can decide as a team what would be the best background. As soon as we know what those 2 options will be, we will happily tell you whether it's going to be a painted backdrop with some sort of textures or a more simple background or more like black velvet curtains that you would find in a theatrical space. That is an ongoing discussion that we're having right now. The other question is lighting experiences, or am I saying that right? Lighting experiences in the runway. There are going to be different lighting choices, but it's going to be more of a, I'm trying to think of the phrase that Kathleen used in our document. It's more going to be set lighting. We're still talking about having an opening lighting that it has a continuity for all the videos, like we've done a silhouette coming through the archway. So possibly a silhouette. Our lighting, or our filmmaker already has some really cool kind of sci-fi inspired special effects that we're discussing that we are going to be able to add. One of them is a lens flare, which if you've watched a sci-fi movie, you've seen that lens flare that happens, and then that big band of light that comes across. So that is another kind of like opening moment, but we're not going to have a spotlight. And the lighting style is different for film than it is for runway. So as we develop, or as our lighting designer sets that design, it will feel different than the runway. But we do have the same lighting designer, that's Mike, and he has designed for film. And so he's going to be great. And you are always welcome to talk about, you know, the mood, the feel, what you're hoping for your piece. And then Mike is almost always able to translate that or ask more questions so that he can translate that into his lighting design. Okay.
I'll just add in the lighting world too, if you think of it as the lights are going to have fixed positions, we're probably not going to be moving their positions around, but we'll have control over which lights are on. So if you wanted, I want really harsh side light or something like that, that's something we can do. probably, or if I only want to be backlit so it's dark and then suddenly then the lights come on in front and we see it. Those are things that we'll probably be able to accomplish. And possibly also some like color highlights or something like that. I know Bo and Mike are working on trying to figure that out. So in terms of dancey club mix, maybe not as much this year. We're not going to rent the LEDs that we usually do. So that's part of the difference too, if you think about it. So
I would think in terms of mood, you know, think in terms of like basic warm, cool colors, lights on, lights off, dimming, and then we're developing those kind of like preset template options for the start. And as soon as we confirm that, that will be shared with you guys. And it's something that we'll talk about in interviews too. So they'll be shared well ahead of interviews.
Something that didn't get mentioned that I just want to quickly bring up too, is that this year we're also doing something a little different because we are filming and we're going to be able to get up close and personal with things. And we don't have to fill 2 minutes of a runway with something. We are opening up the application process to people who just want to do a single piece, which for those of you who might be panicking about time to be able to do things, this might also help with a little bit too, because you will need to have your piece done and ready for filming by March. So I know that is not a lot of time. So if you're like, ooh, I don't know if I can do a whole ensemble, but I have a really great idea for this awesome jacket, you know, we'll take it. Or this amazing helmet headpiece or whatever. So that's kind of new this year, and it's because we'll be able to do that sort of thing justice with our filming, as opposed to what we can do with the, you know, the runway. You can have different impact. So that's there. The caveat to that though is that you want that to be the plan and not the fallback. So if you're going to apply to do something that is a single piece, then that wants to be the plan, so that we're going forward with that, and that's the whole idea. As opposed to coming to March and figuring out, oh, this didn't quite get done, and so let's just fall back to this. Yeah, because that'll be a very different sort of rehearsal process if it's a single piece as opposed to the plan as an ensemble.
The other thing that it just made me think of as Kathleen talked about that is over the years, we've had folks brainstorm like, oh, what if we did a wearable art bra? You know, and I just wore black pants and I had designed this bra. Or I got to be a part of an event with Shoe Fly where the Jack and Shoe Fly worked together, and there was a wearable art shoe event. And some of the shoes you wouldn't have been able to stand up in, you couldn't have walked around, but they looked great as I saw people put them on their feet and lay on their back. So if anyone has tons of free time and tons of creative ideas, you could also do your full wearable art piece and then say, oh, and I wanted to do some shoes that have nothing to do with my piece, and enter 2 things. So that's always an option too. It doesn't have to feel like, I mean, it can feel intentional. Like I wanted to just do shoes because I love shoes.
Okay, Jessica says, will there be someone to help folks feel comfortable or give pointers in front of the camera? I know that there will be different kinds of nerves.
I will absolutely be there, Jessica, to woohoo you and work it, girl, and anything that you need. And also hopefully through our rehearsal process, we will plan for it so it won't feel nerve-wracking. But I will be there, just like I am in rehearsals, just like I am in tech and dress normally. And you guys always hear me yelling at my table with undying love for each and every one of you. I promise I will be there.
And then Katie says, can you talk more about the music choices?
Certainly. So one of the different things about this year is because we are streaming our show, we are not able to choose top 40 hits. So this year, as you register, we're going to give you access to some music libraries that don't have the same, that aren't going to get us kicked off the internet, basically, because unfortunately we can't approach Sony Music with enough money to let us use a Beyonce song. So you're gonna want to spend some time looking at the library. It's not going to be the same as going on YouTube, but what we've discovered through various searches, as Meghan has practiced and I have practiced and Kathleen has practiced, is there's all sorts of ways. Like I put in Beastie Boys in the search on the library, and it gave me songs that are kind of in the Beastie Boys style, but they're not a Beastie Boys song. Meghan was looking, I think, what did you type, like epic or something like that, cinematic, and that gave her, you know, sweeping musical songs that gave you that feeling of watching one of your favorite movies as the camera pans down. So there's a couple different ways you can search for your music, and I definitely suggest try out different things, click different things, and then we'll work together to make sure, as always, that what you've sent off to me to listen to, that I'm actually listening to the right version or the right track on the album, and that Betsy, who is our sound engineer for folks who don't know, then goes ahead and downloads the right music for you to use. The other thing that's kind of nice about this library or the libraries that we are going to give you access to is that the music in and of itself is a little bit shorter. So normally in Wearable Art, we have to worry about, I really love this 10-minute song, how do I shorten it? These tracks tend to be shorter anyways. And then the other thing to remember, going back to what I said earlier, is that we're not filming camera starts, 2 minutes later, camera stops. So we don't, so think about as you're listening to your music, like, oh, I really like how this music swells and it inspires me to want my model to lift her wings. And then we can work with our sound engineer and our filmmaker to put those two things together, but it's not the same as it was in the past where we have to figure out 32 counts of music and then we lift our wings. If that makes sense, that wing swell can be pulled out of the music and placed in a different place.
Beth says, music is so important with me, with my art. That's the most worrisome part of the show. It can make or break a piece. And Beth, I just encourage you, the link to FirstCom, which is the music library we've got licensing for through K2, is in the artist packet, and just take some time to kind of peruse around in there. There's a lot in there. And while like Margeaux says, you might not find a top 40 song, I found folk, I found hard rock, I found cinematic stuff, I found jazzy stuff. I mean, all of the different genres are kind of represented in there. And the way you can search is you can search by mood, you can search for things with lyrics, you can search by beats per minute, you can search, like, it's pretty robust ways to search for the kind of music that might work for you. So if you have an idea of like, oh, I want this to be very like ragey or whatever, you can type in those kind of keywords and find stuff and then just listen to all the hits that come through that, you know, or try other things too. Or if you're like, I want something really mellow and melodic, you know, it's something that'll work is probably in there. So it's just a little different process this year than, as Meghan and Margeaux said, than you know, flipping through your CD files or listening to the radio.
I will add sorry, Margeaux.
No, go ahead.
I'll add, I think we're gonna have access to a second music library as well. And so I will update you all with that other link. The more options, the better. Both of them are extensive, FirstCom and then this other one that we'll have access to. So I knew that music was gonna be different and really worrisome this year, and I felt your anxiety. So I get it. I've been thinking about doing a wearable art piece for a while, and I have a really specific song that I want to do it to, and unfortunately streaming rights are different online, so that will dictate part of how this process goes. And then kind of a follow-up, use Margeaux and Kathleen and I as your minions. If you're not finding what you want, then just reach out and we'll put our work hats on and dive deep for you and talk to other people and see what we can find. Betsy Sims, our sound engineer too. So we're here to support you and to try and make your piece come to life in a way you want it to be, but also not get fined $1 million.
I absolutely agree with Beth. Music not can, will make or break your piece. It's important. It really matters. So I highly, like, Beth is someone that I've worked with before, and her music is selected thoughtfully for her piece. It is not a casual decision. And so I encourage all of us to explore, take your time, dive deep. Let's have those conversations. If you want to shoot me the keywords, the mood, the whatever, like Meghan said, I will poke around and send you emails with, did you look at this one? Have you heard this one? There's other people on the production team who've also said, happy to spend some time looking at the music. We all want your music to be great and special and be the right music for your piece, not just the music that was available and you did it for your piece. So just know that we're really here to support you through that process. But the honest truth is, the decision is, you can't have an event where you ask people to pay for tickets and then have it be taken down off the internet because we're playing songs that the little bots have figured out we don't have the rights to.
I'm also just going to let you know too, Beth, and for any of you who have panicked with your registrations in the past because you had to come up with the music for the registration, that is not a part of the registration this year. We are fully recognizing that this is going to be a whole new process, and it's going to take some time for people to find that piece that's just right when you're having to go through something that's completely different and new. And so, as Meghan mentioned in that scheduling piece, you don't have to have your music selected until the end of February. So you'll have had a chance to go through the interview. It can be a little bit about, that it can be a part of the conversation that happens as a part of that interview. If you're having trouble finding things, and then we'll allow it to be a little bit more of a conversation and allow us to help you out a little bit more if you are struggling kind of just wading through the libraries. So you can take that panic of like, oh God, do I need to go through these like intense music libraries by the 15th and find things? No, you don't have to do that. So breathe a sigh of relief about that. So.
And I want to also say, we keep talking about how in-depth the music libraries are. See that as an asset, that it's going to allow you to search a lot of different things. Don't see that as something that's going to be overwhelming. And if you need us to kind of walk you through the different search parameters that you can use, we can also happily do that.
And I'm also Bo, who is our videographer's on too, and he's one of the persons who has one of the libraries that we may have access to. And he says that I can say that although it won't be a song you've heard on the radio, there are a myriad of beautiful songs made specifically for film and video available, and it's a big artist industry.
I guess I could ask a question to the artists. Is there anything right now that is potentially preventing you from registering that we as a production team can help with? Is it the usual, like, oh my God, will I have time? We've thought a lot about how to make things as safe as possible because of COVID. Also, all of your communications to us via email are confidential. And so if you are an at-risk individual, and you need to tell us something about that, and that would affect filming, then please do that. So yeah, are there certain things about this year that worry you in particular, or how can we help? Is it time? And I'm not saying that none of you are going to register or all of you are going to register. I know we still have a week, and that is a year and also 30 seconds in artist time.
while we're waiting for people to think about that, a few things in our chat. Amanda says maybe we can view the music portion the same as our arts. The streamable music is more our level art-wise. Music you need rights for is more like global brand wearable art, perhaps. And Jessica question is, have you thought about a 360 online still view of the pieces as well for folks that are not comfortable attending the in-person viewing?
So the Living Museum is not a requirement. As of this point, we're not saying, oh, if you're in the show, you are required to be part of the Living Museum. We have kind of, as we've talked about it, there, you know, we could of course do, sometimes we've had wearable art pieces on beautiful, why can I not think of the word? I want to call them dummies, dress models. There you go. Or we did, you know, last year because of the 20th anniversary, we did the retrospective. And so we had lots of pieces that were on display in various locations. What we are looking at for the Living Museum is we would love to be in Centennial Hall because it's such a large space, and then be able to space everyone out and have them be on platforms and things. But yes, if we had an artist who came to us and said, listen, or my model is not comfortable being there, but I would still want my piece represented, we would absolutely get creative on how to have your piece represented at that event, even if you personally can't be there.
We have a question from Beth. If I participate, it's long distance, so could be tricky. Model would be Juneau local.
That sounds perfect. that sounds easy, Beth. Yes, I assumed that you would be long distance. Luckily, we are all getting very comfortable with Zoom, so we will look at each other's faces on our little screens until you don't want to look at our faces. We could even have you Zoom at, well, obviously you could Zoom at the rehearsals, but I know that you have a lot of vision, so I would be comfortable with having you on a screen at the filming so that you can see what's happening and hear what's happening at the filming as well. It's great to have a local, I mean, it's kind of necessary to have a local model because we have this very talented videographer who's here. So your model needs to be here. And we're trying to have everyone have the same high quality video. I think it would be distracting and detract from the art if someone has filmed it on their phone in their backyard at dusk versus everyone else being with the lights and all the techniques. So I would love to work with you on how to make that work so that you can stay long distance, but have your model be here.
And I'll just say, if there's anybody else who is planning on doing something like that, just communicate with Margeaux and Meghan and I. And if you can't, you don't know if there's a model in town that you can use or something, that might be something we can help out with too. Probably be a little bit of communication that needs to happen around like sizes and things like that. But we're more than willing to help kind of make that happen.
I do have a few people that reach out to me every year and say, hey, I want a model for wearable art. So if you don't have a model, just let us know and we'll help find you a model. Hashtag Bob says there are several past ones who would be willing to do it too. I think former models, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you guys go back? I'm sorry I missed it, but go over kind of what your vision is for the schedule for the show.
Okay. Yeah. I'm getting good at it now. Registration's due in a week. It's short and sweet. It's not all the stuff that we used to ask for. February we'll have artist interviews. Those will happen over Zoom. So we ask that the artist and the model are both present for that. March is filming, so model has to be present for that. Artist is encouraged. If you're an out-of-town artist, we can FaceTime you in. April will be you all relax and we all start working real hard, especially our videographer and editor, Bo. He'll be editing everything during that time. You'll get to see your video short and check it out and give us one round of reviews that we'll incorporate into edits. And then May is the festival, and it's a week to 10-day long festival. So wrapping 2 weekends and the week in between. First week is the stream shows online. First weekend is, sorry. And then midweek will be fundraising and community engagement outreach activities. And then the second weekend, pandemic permitting and space permitting, would be this idea of a living museum or living gallery, we've called it, with models spaced out in Centennial Hall, and the public is let through at staggered times in family pods to check out the art. So
Socially distanced.
everything's socially distanced. I will say that because this is a festival, there's going to be a lot of parts. You can participate in any and all of them. To be a wearable art artist, the bare minimum you have to do is create a piece that can be one single element, like a cape or a jacket or whatever you want, or it could be a full ensemble like what we typically see on the runway. And then after that, your participation is not required in anything else. So it's kind of up to you to scale it however you see fit. We'd love to have as many people as comfortable in the living gallery, but also the world is weird right now, and we want everyone to feel safe, and or you're not available for 2 weekends. So that's the short and sweet version.
Hey, Megan, could you go over, like, I know we have said, oh, the application isn't as in depth in past years. We're not requiring the same level of information. Like, if I go on the application tonight, what do I have to tell you?
Yeah,
You're registered.
let me pull it up and I can screen share, and we can just scan through it.
And while you are pulling that up, I am diving in. I'm just answering Beth's question. She said, remind me when the filming takes place. The filming is during the entire month of March, depending, we're kind of mentally blocking off the month of March because we haven't closed registration, so we don't know how many artists and pieces we're going to have. We are at an offsite location or locations this year because the Jack and Centennial Hall are being used by the community for COVID related things. So those 2 locations are not available. And we want to be cognizant of not only socially distanced in the room, but also spacing rehearsals with enough, or not rehearsals, filming with enough time in between, so that there can be all the things that need to happen to make this space safe and set again. Obviously, many of us have jobs that do not mean we work full-time at the Jack. So we recognize that filming can't start until after 5 p.m. on weeknights, can be longer on a Saturday and Sunday. However, we have to stagger it out, and we're giving everyone 2 hours for their filming. That could mean that on a Tuesday night, we get 2 people in only, or 2 pieces filmed only. So that's why we've given ourselves the whole month of March. And then again, depending on how many pieces are actually registered, that will determine what the filming schedule is. And then we, similar to how we've done rehearsals in the past, we'll put out some sort of table, say these are the nights and the times that we have available to film. Let's sign up based on your schedule or the weekends.
Question from Jessica, will tables be set up for smaller wearable art pieces like bras, face masks, etc.?
Well, I was going to say, certainly, again, going back to your earlier question about if an artist or model isn't comfortable participating in a living gallery, and we talked about having maybe dress forms to display a piece, we can look at having, you know, the heads or other beautiful artistic ways to do that. You know, last year at the retrospective, Laura helped a lot with that display in the Jack. So I am sure that if I looked at her and said, can you please help us display these smaller items in a beautiful and thoughtful way, she would dive right in. Or if you're, say, you only made a mask, maybe we put your model in all black and then we see that mask, similar to how we did the opening number last year. And I really focused on the return of some of those wearable art pieces, and the models had a more simple all black outfit to show that off. So we can talk about those options.
So will there be 1 2-hour session in March, or multiple times in March, 1 2-hour session, which is part of the reason why Margeaux had said it'll be really important to arrive ready to film, and why it'll be so important for that rehearsal time to kind of be to figure out like, oh, okay, we want a medium shot of this beautiful fringe, and then we're going to spin so that it all flies around, and kind of sort of map out how the filming wants to go, so that that 2 hours can be used to the best of our ability to get the best shots possible for Bo to then use his editing magic and turn them into wearable art short gold.
And I don't know if we said this out loud, but, and Margeaux can describe her her vision for rehearsal and filming more, but you won't necessarily be filming for 2 hours. We'll spend at least half of that 2-hour session rehearsing, so that when the cameras do start rolling, we're ready and we're prepped and we have a plan. And even before that filming session, we'll have Zoom rehearsals where we refine, like we go in and we have an outline and some bullet points of shots we want to capture, or details of your piece that are really important to highlight, all that jazz.
Yes, I will caveat that with, we probably won't spend half of your filming time rehearsing. So that's what the rehearsal is before that. But because, as I've said before, we're not gonna say action and then film, and then stop, and that's the film, that's the video. We're gonna say action, okay, cut. Now we're gonna change the angle of the camera. Okay, action, okay, cut. Now there's going to be a lot of stopping and starting, but very similar to how we do it in the past, for those of you who've worked with me before, and for those of you who are new, the time that we put in rehearsal or rehearsals matters, because the day of the show, or in this case, the day of the filming, isn't going to be the time to talk at length about your vision for the piece, or what's happening, or your concerns about the way that the clasp of your cape is connected to your jumpsuit. We can't spend the time there, because the 2 hours is finite, and when it's over, it's over. And if we didn't get it because we spent our time talking about something rather than doing the filming, there's not going to be another option. And that's very similar to how at rehearsals, you know, I mean, it's amazing to think, when I'm saying we're going to film for 2 hours, that normally in rehearsals, I get 15 minutes with you guys twice. I mean, we accomplish a lot of work in 15 minutes, but we do that because you all are wonderful about showing up on time. And we've talked about it in the artist interview, and you've sent me emails, and you've sent Meghan emails, and we've had lots of behind the scene questions, so that those 15 minutes are like wham, bam, really drill down on what's happening. We're going to have to do that same mentality when it comes to filming, so that when we show up, we're ready to go. Bo kind of knows, like, we're highlighting fringe, where it's ethereal, it's moody, it's shadowy, and we're bam, 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 stop, cut, stop, cut, stop, cut. So he has lots to edit from, and isn't like, well, really, they stood there and chatted, and then I got 2 shots. The other thing I want to mention, and you'll see it in the artist packet, is because we're not walking the runway, time is different. So we've kind of asked for everyone's piece to be between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. I know 30 seconds doesn't sound like a lot. Think about commercials that you see on TV. Think about fashion videos you watch. They're not very long, and they still have a very strong impact. It's all about the editing. It's all about the different angles and the shots. If you design the most gorgeous pair of wearable art chaps, that may not be a 2-minute video. And we ask that you trust the experts as we work with you on what that video length is. If you have tons of detail, that may be a different length. So there is a little bit more flexibility, because it's not about, oh gosh, I have to get to the end of the runway, or Kathleen tells Mike to turn the lights off and Margeaux gives me the look. So it's a little bit different this year. Megan, did you have the, or did you want me to read? She kind of disappeared, so maybe I will do it. If I were to go home tonight and apply,
I'm back, sorry.
can you tell us what we have to do? What do I have to tell you in order to become a registered artist this year?
Okay, let me see if I can screen share.
And while she's screen sharing, I do want to give a shout out to Katie Roop. If you're new, you may not know her. She is one of 2 artist reps. We have lots of veteran artists like Dr. Amy on the screen tonight. We have Beth, also a veteran, Jessica Hood, also a veteran. Connect with our artist rep and they can hook you up with a veteran. But the whole point of an artist rep is that they have volunteered their time to be at production meetings and to be willing to answer questions and communicate information. So a great person to start with is Katie Roop, and our other artist rep this year, although unavailable tonight, is Michelle Morris. Okay, Megan.
And then we've got several veteran artists on this call too. So I'm, just blindly volunteering you all as resources, but I know you all and you're amazing. So, okay. The link for this is on the JAC website. The program that collects responses is called Airtable. So that's why the link is going to look like that. Airtable does not let you create a username and log in and save your responses. So it's a one and done situation. There is a Word document on the Wearable Art page, so you can download that and use that as a way to draft responses, although less important this year, I think, because it's pretty straightforward. So you're going to put your contact info in. This is all confidential. We don't share it. We put it in the Arts Council's member database, and that's how we send you your thank you letter and your Arts Council membership at the end of the year. We do need to know if you're a minor for permissions and liability reasons. We need to know if you have extra artists on your team, if the artist is modeling, or if you have a separate artist, or separate model, sorry. Are you planning to do one single element like a cape or a hat, or are you planning to do a full ensemble? And then a written description. So lots of helpful text here. What's your inspiration? What do you want us to know? Is there a storyline? Are there things to highlight? Is there anything fragile? Are there even parts of it like, hey, my goal is this. I don't know if it's going to work. If it doesn't work, then I'll probably do something like this with this other material. Any information you want to share is great for us. None of it gets shared with the public. None of it gets posted on Instagram or Facebook. It is all secret, confidential. We respect your privacy as artists and the process that you do to create these amazing pieces. Then we ask you to visually describe your piece. I used to call this a mood board. That really confused people last year. I think my graphic design brain snuck in there a little too much, but some people are not great at writing. Some people are better at drawing or collages or finding inspiration images on the internet. And so please upload that here. You can upload as many JPEGs or PDFs as you want. Another thing that's really helpful would be photos of your materials, or if you've started to craft pieces, like you've been knitting wire or making chainmail out of pop tabs. This is a good spot to do that. Listing all of your major materials is helpful. No need to list hot glue or duct tape or thread or anything like that unless it's a material that you want to highlight. We used to ask for dimensions because typically we had some kind of entrance and we needed to make sure we designed the set piece and the entrance big enough for all of your pieces to get through. We don't have that anymore, but we do need to know, do we need to get far enough back that we got to get a 6 foot tall headpiece in at least some of the shots, or what pieces are going to require some more handling getting in and out of the venue. Along those lines, do you have any special needs? is your piece made out of pine cones that are very fragile, and/or are you shedding like layer upon layer upon layer? Can you not move your arms? All of those things are really good. Are you interested in participating in the Living Gallery in May? We talked about that a little bit. And then here's the only question we'll ask you about music, which is what basic genre are you thinking about? And really that just helps Margeaux get a better picture of what you have in your head. Then you'll upload your liability waivers and media releases. So those are the last 3 pages of the artist packet. Are you interested in being a juried entry? Every year I ask the artists, would you like to be juried this year? And every year I get, eh. So here we are again. We are not sure what the jurying process will look like if we do it. So this is an opportunity to weigh in as artists. As a production team and the Jack staff, we don't really care. It doesn't, I mean, we want to do a good job at whatever we're putting on, but it doesn't make a difference to us whether we have a juried show or don't have a juried show. And then finally, is there anything that we missed? So something that didn't get captured in the above questions. And then here's my little producer trick. You confirm that you have read the packet and you understand the process, and that you will be able to attend 1 Zoom interview, 1 Zoom rehearsal, and 1 in-person filming. Those 3 things are required. If you don't make one of those, we can't guarantee that you're going to be in the show. That is it.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah. Hopefully that's better than prior years.
Yeah. And I would say 2 things to note for former artists that you may be like, is it true? We're not asking you for a draft of what the MCs are going to say about your piece. And we're not asking you for a draft of what would be said about your piece in the program. We will deal with that later. We don't need it right now. So don't worry about that. And again, like, we're trying to appeal to everyone's type of brain. So we want you to use some words to talk about what your piece is going to be. We want you to maybe think about some imagery, sketches, photos, whatever, even if they're just photos of, I'm drawn towards this blue velvet pile on my kitchen counter, because some people are visual, and then some people speak through music. So what kind of feel to the music are you looking for? Think of it like that. We're just trying to dig into your brain where you're holding your vision so that we can kind of know what your vision is right now. And that's all we need to know. That's it. Easy.
I'm gonna say, if for some reason you do know what music you want, go ahead and throw that in there somewhere. That can get that music convo started promptly, which is great, but it's not a requirement.
And a lot of those questions too, the more specific you are in them, the more productive our interview will be when we have that sort of time to sit down and chat about like, okay, what's your vision? And it will be less about like, you put this very mysterious picture in there, but we're not sure what that is or what it has to do with your piece. And more just about digging into like, oh, okay, you have this idea and here's where we think we might be able to help bring that to life. I see that Amy has said, Dr. Amy said, I will miss having a long, super stressful but fun weekend with my favorite people. And I will say, Amy, and to all of you guys too, some of the things that Margeaux and Meghan and the rest of the team and I have been trying to figure out is how can we create some sort of like bonding experience for all the artists that can help replace that sort of crazy backstage magic that happens on Wearable Art Weekend. So if any of you guys have thoughts about something to do that's more exciting than just another big Zoom chat, we'd love to hear your ideas because we can make that happen as a part of Festival Week, something that's special and magical just for our artists to kind of help you feel like you're a part of a cohort. So yeah, let us know, because then we can make it happen, and then it's more something from you guys and us rather than us just going, hey, maybe this will be fun. There are 2 surveys on the website too for the Wearable Art, on the Wearable Art webpage, one that's geared towards artists and one that's geared towards just anybody who wants to do anything with wearable art, where you can give us your feedback and ideas about this new version of the way we're doing it with the festival. And if you have ideas about how to make it more engaging for the audience and the community and all the different people, you know, come in, tell us your thoughts, because like as Megan and Margeaux said, this is kind of a new process for us, so we're still kind of figuring it out and finding ways that we can make it the best it possibly can be in these very strange times and with this very new format.
Something that we haven't maybe said explicitly that's good to know is that we're talking about 3 shows. Sometimes we use, oh, the show's going to be streaming, and we all think we're talking in the same language, but some people will say that you're using the wrong terms. So there's on demand, which means at any time someone with a ticket gets to like turn on their Wearable Art and watch it, similar to like a Netflix. That's not what we're doing. We're having 3 ticketed events with 3 specific start times. So if you buy a ticket to the Thursday performance at 7 p.m., then you're going to log in a little bit before that for, you know, a pre-show of some sort, and then the event starts at 7 p.m. and then it's going to end. We haven't decided if there will later be an on-demand. Usually through 360 North, they will have a later showing, and we're talking about whether or not that's still something that will happen this year. But right now, it's still going to be similar to previous years, show times that you show up for, and if you don't log in at your ticketed time, you missed it. But maybe you get reticketed for tomorrow. I'm not sure.
But what's really exciting about this year as opposed to other years is that those of you who are artists and models, you can actually watch the show with everybody else because your piece will be done. You'll have filmed it in March, it's in the can. The only people who can't watch the show live are going to be the MCs and the production team who are like making sure that the stream actually happens correctly at that 7 o'clock curtain time or whatever. So that'll be kind of a fun and new and interesting experience for artists this year, is that you can live watch with your family and friends like you couldn't do in years prior. And I also see that Jessica says that she's excited about the extended audience. Thanks for all you do, and glad this is happening this year. And this is the time where your friends who are in the lower 48 or in other parts of Alaska can join to watch the show. So we are excited about that too. You don't have to be here in Juneau to see it, which will be fun and exciting. And who knows, we might just have like thousands of people watching. We don't know. We can hope. And Megan says that each entry will still get a comp ticket. The thing that's going to be different about tickets this year is that like one ticket doesn't equal one butt in a seat like it used to. It's literally one device that is streaming. So you know, we'll probably be looking at how the tickets are priced too, so that it's kind of fair for families and everybody to gather around TVs or, you know, computers or whatever to watch.
I will add that I put this in the chat earlier, but we're actively brainstorming community engagement options, both for streaming packages, like buy your ticket and dinner and beverages to go. So we'd like to partner with local Juneau businesses. But if you have ideas for fun ways to make sure that the community is involved in wearable art, that's what I'll be spending some time doing for the rest of this month before we dive into Artist Zone in February. So I'm trying to think of like kids education activities, or creating a wearable art coloring book, or hiding like bits of wearable art pieces around town to do a scavenger hunt, or partnering artists with local businesses after the event so that each piece is displayed in a window somewhere. So really attacking that festival-like feel. I only have so many ideas in me, and I'm not the only creative person. So I would love your brains, or if you know people that you think might be interested. We're looking for all kinds of partners and all kinds of new things to make wearable art a real festival, and maybe a mainstay in the future. Just because this is a virtual year doesn't mean that everything we do this year is only for 2021. Jessica Hood says, definitely thinking more about the artistic approach than the performance aspect. And I love the idea of close-ups. Yeah, I think that's a good, not to say that performance can't be strong in video. And Margeaux can second this, but we definitely have different types of performing art on the runway every year. There's people who have like extremely planned choreography, and then there's people that kind of groove down the runway. Those approaches, although we're not on a runway, are also going to happen more or less in filming. So, and we'll capture that movement differently based on what we talk about in rehearsal. Margeaux, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, one of the first things I thought, because I try to be a silver lining kind of gal when I thought about filming, was like, Catherine Grant Griffin and her tiny details are going to get all of the close-up shots they've always deserved on the runway. And then I, you know, immediately think of artists who layer on layer on layer of different materials, and we think we see them, and then we go out into the crowded lobby, and we're like, oh my gosh, those are tiny spices that you have, you know, adhered to your piece. And I had no idea from the runway. Like, I thought I knew what I was seeing, but I didn't know what I was seeing until I got up close. And so that is definitely one of the things that I'm way excited about when it comes to filming, is getting the opportunity to get up close in there. I also know that we've had artists in the past who have really been quite thoughtful about the makeup that they've chosen for their piece. Sometimes they're doing it themselves. Sometimes they're directing a makeup artist on what their look is. We're gonna get some nice tight shots on that. And there's gonna be a little bit of freedom. You know, even though we're not going down a runway, we are still gonna have opportunities to film movement. So I don't want you to think that it's just gonna be like pose, 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 pose. We'll still have opportunities for movement. We'll still have opportunities for, you know, maybe a dramatic jump or a lunge or a crouch, and we'll talk about those. And if there's something that I'm like, ooh, that's something I've never thought of, let me check in with Bo and we'll see how we can best achieve that vision. So don't feel like everyone has to be like stiff little robots, because if that's what we wanted, we would just put it on a mannequin and Bo would like work with a mannequin. So that's not what we want. But I think there's going to be some really awesome creative opportunities and some ways to approach this that we've never thought before, which I'm very excited about and super excited to get to work with Bo on, because this is where he gets to geek out with us. Meghan asked me to kind of do my vision statement. I will say Meghan has learned that I am a sci-fi geek that she didn't know that I was. Okay, so my vision statement as it is written in the artist packet is, what a year it has been since we last gathered together as models, artists, volunteers, collaborators, and audience members. We can all agree that this past year has been exhausting, sometimes sad, and often frustrating. However, your Wearable Art team has been hard at work reimagining this community extravaganza, and I'm so excited to welcome you to Wearable Art 2021 Intergalactic live stream edition. How fortuitous that a year ago, our community chose a theme that would send us to space. I, for one, am completely ready to ditch this fracking popsicle stand and climb aboard the Starship Jack and blast off. More than 50 years after Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon, space continues to fascinate and inspire us. As artists, we can imagine the unlimited possibilities of space, which in turn allows us to reflect back on our own humanity, our fear of the unknown, and our hope for the future. Together, we will speed through the stars on an intergalactic space mission to discover new worlds. Through the science of your residential holodeck, aka streaming device, we shall engage with new alien races and artificial intelligence. Each evening, our intrepid artists will use the force and beam themselves into your homes, and guided by our dedicated crew on the bridge, we will venture into space, Wearable Art's next frontier. And then I included a quote of the song that we all thought we were gonna fight for, Another Dimension, New Galaxy, Intergalactic, Planetary. But Beastie Boys, because last year I had like 8 artists say, I'm using that song. And it's kind of ironic that no one's using that song except for our hearts. But yeah, I am planning on having the MCs have just kind of a wild romp with references to Star Trek and Star Wars and BSG and Spaceballs, and I read a lot of sci-fi books, and so there's going to be little Easter eggs of wording and scenes, and maybe there'll be some tribbles that kind of make their way onto the screen. So they're going to have a really great time creating this framework around the pieces that are created. And, you know, one of the things I love about Wearable Art every year is, you know, artists aren't tied to the theme. Sometimes you're inspired by something that has nothing to do with space. But the nice thing about space is it's travel. So if someone designs a piece that's inspired by seaweed, then we can travel to a water planet and dive down deep into that planet's ocean. And if someone is doing a piece that's inspired by copper, then maybe we find that copper inspired piece in an asteroid belt. So we can kind of go all over and get creative on the storyline, because really that storyline that the MCs tell is how I always look at it, is it's like a crown, and then you guys and the pieces you create are like the jewels. And so we just want to create the best framework to show off your piece. And this year we get to go into space, which I get to geek out about. Yay.
But how long do you think would the living gallery be when we do it? What's your vision?
I mean, I think that we don't want to torture the models who are standing there, so we probably wouldn't have it be open for super long.
Like a
If
couple
that
hours
makes
at the
sense.
most?
But it would also be something that we'd need to have it gated and ticketed, and, you know, like only so many people are in the building at once, and everybody socially distanced, and, you know, all of that good stuff. So
Yeah.
we
Like
have not
couple
come
days.
up with the, you know, parameters exactly yet, though.
Yeah.
But welcome any feedback from artists and models.
And I will say one of the things about the living gallery, like where that the genesis for that idea is because, you know, a lot of artists expressed that they want the audience to see their piece up close, and that they felt like filming didn't equal that for them. And so they still wanted an opportunity, that there was something about physically seeing it in person that they wanted to make sure could still happen, which is why we've kind of gone towards exploring that option and really trying to make sure that that can come to fruition. But I mean, there will be close-up shots and stuff, but I understand what folks are saying about there's just something special about seeing it in person, especially when I think of like Nimi's Spices piece. You only knew it was, you didn't get to enjoy the smell unless you were physically next to Nimi's piece.
And I've been trying to think of like teasers or highlights or things we can do throughout the week in between the two shows to kind of like keep the momentum going, whether that's like really short, even if it's just phone recorded interviews about the piece, or if we have portraits taken again or photos taken again, and then we highlight each artist one day at a time on social media in between each weekend, just to give artists and audience as much screen time together as possible, even if it's not just live tuning in to a movie. Definitely like breaks for the models in the living gallery, and they're not going to have to freeze and pose for an hour, you know. So yeah,
the vision for the living gallery, in addition to you know being kind of roped off, so the viewer, the bubbled viewer, is walking through at a safe distance from the model or artist model, depending on what it is. We're looking at having some sort of platform or designated space where that model or artist model will be up on. So it is creating like a little vignette, but like Kathleen said, it's a living gallery, so we're not asking you to be frozen in a pose. We can even talk about like, are there movements that show off your piece to its best? And then we are planning on having there be sort of a simple, but some sort of lighting schematic so that you are, you know, have nice lighting on you and it's showing your piece off. So it does feel like a gallery where, you know, the statues and the art on the walls has lighting on it, and it's not just kind of this dark, dim room. And so that's maybe something we hadn't fully expressed before, but that's something to know.
Yeah, no dark room and no like here we are under fluorescent lights.
Staff and volunteers there to make sure that no one's breaking rules too. Everyone's safe.
And the same mask requirement for filming is also going to be a part of being in the living gallery, which should be shouldn't give anyone pause, because hopefully you've integrated your mask into your piece in such a way where it's a very fluid component and it doesn't feel like, oh, I got to put this mask on. It's like, yep, that's all part of the thing that transforms my piece into what my vision is. Which is also really exciting to see how our creative artists are going to do that. How do they integrate it? How do they add an accent, or, you know, make it look like a fish mouth or whatever it is? As long as it's still functional, you can put all sorts of things to kind of amend it. And, you know, for ideas about that, the Jack did a great gallery show, which they can still access, Kathleen?
I believe so. I think it's on the community showcase page.
Well, I might start wrapping this up. In summary, thank you everyone who's joined us. Thank you to my other two panelists, Kathleen Harper. She's Arts Council staff and co-producer. I'm Megan Chambers, co-producer. Margeaux Ljundberg, director. Katie Roop, artist rep. I'll just go through everyone else who's still on this call. Bo Silty, videographer, and Amy Dressel, longtime artist. Artist registrations are due January 15th by 11:59 p.m. Artist registrations are online at www.jahc.org. Click the Wearable Art link. They are much easier than prior years. Not very many questions, and not as many decisions. The artist packet is online. You'll find all kinds of info there, everything we've talked about tonight and more. Kathleen and I are also actively working on several resource pages, guidelines and parameters for filming, how to navigate the music databases that you'll have access to, and storyboards. So we'll share those with everyone right now. I do have an artist email contact list. It is housed in Google Drive, and so if you want to get on that list, you just email me, wearableart@jahc.org. I'll send those updates to the entire list until January 15th, and then I'll switch to only registered artists, so you won't get bombarded forever. Other than that, we'll do interviews in February. We'll start filming in March. We'll edit in April, and we'll have a 10-day almost festival mid-May. So it's a different year. We're excited to be here. We're adapting, we're pivoting, we're exploring new worlds. And as always, reach out to any of us with questions or concerns. When in doubt, email all three ladies of Wearable Art, Kathleen, Megan, and Margeaux, with your question, and then we'll direct it to the best spot. So,
and our emails can be found in the artist packet right at the top. I know Megan just said hers out loud. Mine is way too complicated to ask you to remember. So go to the artist packet. All three of our emails are there. When in doubt, email to all three of us and you're guaranteed an answer.
And there's a Wearable Art artist Facebook group. Katie has access to that. I think you just Google it in Facebook. I don't go there because I feel like it's a safe space for artists to chat amongst themselves. So I don't know how to add you to it, but Katie can do it. And then you'll get connected to the whole Wearable Art artist community. And lots of artists there, lots of veteran artists that can help you with construction, inspiration, process questions. And usually Katie and Michelle post my email updates in that group too, in case the emails are going to spam.
And the Facebook group, might become an even more essential way to connect with your other artists, because normally we start to have rehearsals together and someone sees your piece up close, or you say, oh, I'm having this problem, which is why I didn't bring this part of my piece. And there's a bunch of artists waiting to rehearse. And so then those organic conversations happen. But since we're rehearsing via Zoom, separate from our separate spaces, having a way to access your other artists, like Dr. Amy, like Katie, like Michelle, like Beth, like Jessica, who was on the call, or call, as if I'm a radio DJ, was on the Zoom earlier. It's a great way to interact, brainstorm. How do I glue two things that should never be glued together, but I want to do it anyways? Those are the people to ask. And we will happily direct you to those people as well. But I would highly
The Facebook group is called Juneau Wearable Arts Association on Facebook. And I think you have to request to join, because usually there's a lot of project sharing that goes on, especially once registration is closed and the creative process begins. So they'll have to approve your request, but everyone is invited to join that, as far as I know.
And Dr. Amy emphasizes, we are all willing to help. And that is absolutely true. Well, we have 1 minute left, ladies and Bo. So I think we can officially sign off and say thank you for joining us for the Q&A. For those of you who hung in, thank you at home, for the thousands that must be watching us later. And we look forward to reading your registrations next week. When's the deadline, Megan?
January 15th, 11:59.
Which is Friday. Friday.
Yes. All right.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you guys. I miss seeing you in person.
Good night.
Miss you too. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.